Hi everyone, my name is Ruth and I'm from Hong Kong and I work for the Education University of Hong Kong, and today I would like to share with you what intercultural communication in society is like. So first of all, what is communication? If I ask you one question now, what is a chair? What answer will you have for yourself? When I ask you what a chair is, will you be thinking that it is something that you sit on? Or will you be thinking that it is the chairperson of a committee? So everyone will have a different answer for this question. So why would we have different answers for the same question? And why would we have a different definition for the same concept? So I have listed 4 reasons here. The first one is because of our cultural background differences, because you are from a different background and I am from my own background. So when we interpret things, we will have a different definition. And the second reason is because of the way we communicate. When we talk about a concept, not everyone will have the same way that we talk about things. For example, in a classroom, not everyone will speak up. If you have an international students class, some students will tend to be a little bit more outspoken and some will tend to be a little bit more reserved. And that is because of the way they are different in communication or in communicating. And the third reason is personality. And I think this is very obvious that some extroverts might be speaking more than the introverts, and introverts might tend to be a little bit more quiet in a classroom. So the how we talk about things or how we have different definitions of certain concepts is actually due to the differences between our personalities. And the last one is probably the demographic characteristics that we are different in. We're different in terms of our gender. You may be a man and I'm a woman, and the way you talk or the way women talk are very different from each other. And then it might be because of age differences as well. Older people tend to speak differently from the way that younger people talk. Like the way I talk is different from the way my son talks. And it could be our occupation as well. Some people tend to speak a lot more politely, or some people will tend to speak more casually because of their occupation. And then it could be because of our religious background as well. So there are a lot of demographic reasons that make our communication patterns or make our perceptions to certain ideas different. Next, I would like to talk about the 10 properties and definitions of communication. The first one is process. As you can see from here, it says communication theory reflects a process point of view. You cannot talk about the beginning or the end of communication. So communication is a process. I would say it actually started when we were given birth. We started communicating with the world, our mothers and friends. And then as we grow up, we have a lot of communication opportunities to talk to people around us and get knowledge and messages from each other and interact with friends and teachers. And communication is an ongoing process. So that's the first property or definition. And the second one is dynamic. Communication is dynamic. As you can see here, communication is a transaction among symbol users in which meanings are dynamic and changing as a function of early usage and of changes in perceptions and meta-perceptions. So communication is dynamic because it builds on top of one another. After we talk to a person or after we have started a conversation with a person, we exchange meanings. And once meanings were exchanged, we had that knowledge in our head, and then we built new concepts and new messages according to the changes meaning of the topic. And then we might change our point of view. We might change our views about things as we talk. So that's why we said that communication is dynamic, because no one will stick with one single concept for a very, very, very long time. And we'll say that communication is a fluid process that is dynamic because it involves a lot of different symbols in the process of communication. The next property is interactive, and I don't think this is a very difficult concept to understand, because when we communicate, we interact with people who we are talking to, and also we interact with the environment, the temperature of the room, the noise around us, etc. So communicating is interactive. And then the next one is symbolic. It says all the symbols of the mind together with the means of conveying them through space and preserving them in time. So when we talk, we use language, and the language behind is culture, and it carries very heavy symbolic meaning about what we say. Because when we communicate, we generate new ideas about certain symbols. For example, what a chair is, or what democracy is, or what a democratic country should be like. So in communication is symbolic because it represents the values of the time. The fifth property is intentional. So communication is intentional because when we talk, we have a reason why we talk. When we teach, we have a reason why we teach. So when we convey meanings, we want to convey our messages, we have an intention behind that communication. And then the next one is contextual. So communication always involves a context. For example, teacher and student, doctor and patients, lawyer and his clients. Yeah. So the way we talk or how we talk to each other, how we interact depends on the different contexts. Even for the same person, you will speak differently when you are at work or when you are back home talking to your children, because context determines how we communicate. The next one is ubiquitous. We say that communication is everywhere because when we talk, we don't just talk to people. We also interact and respond to the environment, to the temperature of the room, and then we turn up and turn down the aircon. And then we also interact with the noise around us. If someone is speaking too loudly, you tend to speak even louder, or you try to change the environment, or you want to change the place that you are talking to your friend. So communication is everywhere. And then the eighth property is cultural. Culture is communication. Communication is culture, because the way we talk is greatly affected by our own cultures. I'm a Chinese, so I speak like a Chinese. I won't be speaking like an American culture. And if you're from the United Kingdom, you will be speaking English the way the British do. So when we talk, it's not just the way we talk, but also the values that is embedded in our conversation as well. So if you're Chinese, if you're an Asian, you have your Asian values when you talk. And the way we communicate, it is about values exchange, cultural exchange, then so that we can understand each other better. And then the ninth is irreversible. Communication can never go back. If we have already said something to our listeners, it is very hard to take back what we said, because communication is ubiquitous, is all around us, is everywhere, and communication is always a process. So it is very hard to take back what we have already said. And then the last one is interdependent. As we all know, when we communicate, there are a lot of different elements involved in the process of communication. Verbal, spoken form of languages, meanings, cultures, values, beliefs, and symbolic items, how we or the relationship between you and your friends whom you are talking to. So all these are interdependent. They all depend on each other, and they affect each other's how we talk to each other. So for example, you had a good relationship with a friend, and you will build on what you have been talking to him or her in the past, and then develop that communication further. So that is based on your understanding of this friend. It is based on what you know about this friend, what he likes, what he doesn't like. Then you will avoid things that he doesn't like listening to, and you guys will want to keep this friendship going on and keep talking things that you both are interested in. So these are the 10 properties and definitions of intercultural communication. So the next concept I would like to talk about is transactional model of communication. When we communicate, it's always someone will be talking, and then the other one will be listening. But then in fact, according to the transactional model of communication, there are more people communicating than we think. Who are they? Let's take a look at the next slide. So when two people are talking, one receiver, one speaker, how many people are in fact communicating? So here, let me explain a little bit one by one. So the first one will be my self-perception. So all communications begins with self-perception. And then is my perception of you. So I'm communicating with my perception of you as well, what I think you are. And then the third one is my perception of your perception of me. And I'm also communicating with what I think you think of me. So it's actually very complicated. And then the same applies to the listener. The listener will be your self-perception. And then your perception of me, what do you think I am, or how I will be responding. And then the last one is your perception of my perception of you, what you think I think of you. All right, so when these 6 selves or people are communicating, it is actually more complicated than just simply saying that two people are talking to one another. One is the speaker, one is the listener, and then exchange information. One may become a speaker again, and then the other one remains as a listener. So if we think about communication in this way, then we know the complication and how complex communication can be. So here's an example or a context for you to imagine the complexity of communication. Think about how many people were there at dinner time last night. If there were mommy, daddy, and your brothers and sisters and yourself, and there are 5 people together, think about the multiplication of this math problem. So far, we have been talking about what communication is, the properties and definition of communication, and also we mentioned about the transactional model of communication. Now we move on to what culture is. In simple form, culture refers to the set of values and beliefs that a person has. What values are refer to what we treasure, what we think they are important. For example, freedom, democracy, love, family relations, for example. And what are beliefs? Beliefs are what we believe in. For example, some people who are Buddhist, they believe in Buddha. And some people believe in Jesus Christ. They believe in salvation. And these are what beliefs refer to. And to what extent culture affects us? Culture affects us, first, is our perception about our surroundings. So how we perceive certain ideologies, how we will be reacting to certain social environment, and that depends on our perception. And culture will affect our perception. And then the next one is verbal and nonverbal language, and that is not difficult to understand. Culture will affect the way we talk, the way we perceive ideas from the speaker, and it will affect the way we interact in terms of facial expression or body gesture. Finally, culture also affects our identity. For example, if you are the eldest in the house, for example, in Chinese culture, if you're the eldest, you will bear the responsibility to take care of your siblings. Or if you are a man, or if you're a woman, you have a different roles. You have a different role in the family, or who should be going out to work, who should be taking care of the kids. And if you're a woman or if you are a male, you behave differently in public according to your culture. And then also your occupation, occupation choice as well. Some say that the Asian will probably prefer some more safe jobs when they choose their career because of the certain uncertainty avoidance. So all these are affected by our culture. So let's make a little conclusion about culture and communication. First of all, the relationship is reciprocal, complex, and interrelated. So culture and communication, they are interdependent and they affect each other. Culture is communication, communication is culture. The way we talk, the way we interact with the environment and people is all affected by the culture. And then every person is a creator of society and its most obvious product. So because we are part of the culture and we talk to generate and extend the culture to other people and let other people understand who we are, where we're from, and our cultures. So it is a creator of the society of different cultures. And then culture and communication add on one another. So culture will affect the society and the way we communicate. And then as time goes by and as technological development is advanced, the way we interact, the way we talk, and our culture will be different. And all communication occurs within culture. That is to look at the relationship between culture and communication. Culture affects the way we communicate. So we'll look at the way we communicate is based on our own cultural norm. And then finally, our culture is manifested in our communication. And it directs how we talk and how we behave. Okay, before we go, let's make a little conclusion about what intercultural communication is. As you can see from this PowerPoint, it says that it takes at least 2 people to listen and to talk together. And these 2 people can be from different nationalities, okay, like the British talking to the Japanese, the Russians talking to the Spanish, yeah. So they are linguistically different, and their nationalities could be different as well. And what about microculture? 2 people from 2 different microcultures can be a form of intercultural communication as well. Microculture refers to not just linguistically different, but also religiously different, or even racially or age group or gender difference. These are the microculture. A Buddhist can be talking to a Christian, not necessarily about religion, but about some normal routines, or they're in the same class, but when they talk, their values and belief can be different. And the 2 people, when they talk about certain topic, like for example, the philosophy of education, because of their religious background, they might hold different ideas. So that is what we meant by intercultural communication. Not just linguistically different, not just cultural group different, but also religiously, gender, age group, religious background differences. So that's the end of my topic today, and I hope you enjoy it.